Hello. We will now discuss paper 4 of 2024 February-March series. So then let's get started. Question 1. A grocer sells potatoes, mushrooms and carrots. A customer buys 3 kilograms of mushrooms at $1.04 per kilogram and 4 kilograms of carrots at $1.28 per kilogram. We need to calculate the total cost. Now we know the price of each kilogram. Then we also know how many kilograms the customer buys. So we simply have to multiply them and add them together. So in this case, when it comes to mushroom, so he's buying 3 kilograms. So 3 kilograms will cost 3 times 1.04. Then 4 kilograms of carrot will be 4 times 1.28. We add these two together, multiply them and add these two together. So this will give us the total cost, which is, so 3 times 1.04 plus 4 times 1.28. So that is equal to $8.24. So that's $8.24. Let's move on to part B. In 1 week, the ratio of the masses of vegetables sold by the grocer is potatoes to mushrooms to carrots is 11 to 8 to 6. What are the mass of mushrooms sold as a percentage of the total mass? So we need to write it as a percentage of the total mass. Now, in this case, they have given us in the form of a ratio. So first we need to add these numbers together and see what's the total number of parts we have. So 11, 8 and 6 together is equal to 25, which means if there are 25 parts, mushrooms will be 8 parts. So that's going to be 8 out of 25. Then we got to times it by 100 to convert this into a percentage. So 8 over 25 times 100 is equal to 32%. Let's move on to the second part of it. The total mass of potatoes, mushrooms, and carrots sold is 1,500 kilograms. Find the mass of carrots the grocer sells this week. So this is the ratio of the amounts the grocer sells this particular week. So we have 25 parts in total. So we need to find the mass of carrots the grocer sells. So when it comes to carrots, he sells 6 portions out of 25. So we are going to write 6 out of 25, but I need to multiply it by the total mass, which is going to be 1,500 kilograms. So this will give us the mass of carrots. So 6 over 25 times 1,500 is equal to 360, which means the mass of carrots sold this particular week is going to be 360 kilograms. So that is out of 1,500 kilograms, 360 kilograms will be carrots. Part 3. The profit the grocer makes selling 1 kilogram of carrots is $0.75. So that is 75 cents. Find the total profit the grocer makes selling carrots this week. We already know from the previous question the amount of carrots sold, which means if each kilogram is equal to $0.75, we need to now times this 360 by 0.75 to find the total profit made, because this is the profit for 1 kilogram. So 360, we need to times it by 0.75. When I times 360 and 0.75 together, we will end up getting $270. So that is the total profit the grocer makes this particular week by selling carrots. Let's move on to part 4. On the last day of the week, the grocer reduces the price of 1 kilogram of potatoes by 8% to $1.15. Calculate the original price of 1 kilogram of potatoes. In the question, we are given the final amount. We are supposed to calculate the original price. And in this question, it clearly states that the grocer reduces the price by 8%, which means in this case, from 100, we need to deduct this 8. So from 100, when I deduct 8, that is 92%. So 92% is only equal to this $1.15. So I'm going to write this 92% as a multiplier. So that is as a decimal, I'm going to write it. So that is the same as 0.92. Now, the final amount is given to us. We are supposed to calculate the original price. So to find the original amount, when the final amount is given, you divide the final amount by the multiplier that we found. So the final amount is $1.15, and I need to divide this by the multiplier, which is 0.92. So when I divide 1.15 with 0.92, I end up getting the price of the original price of 1 kilogram of potatoes, which is equal to $1.25. Let's move on to question C. The grocer buys 620 kilograms of onions, correct to the nearest 20 kilogram. He packs them into bags, each containing 5 kilograms of onions, correct to the nearest 1 kilogram. Calculate the upper bound for the number of bags of onions that he packs. So we need to calculate the upper bound for the number of bags of onions he's going to pack. To find the number of bags of onion, the total that you have, the total amount that is given to us, the total amount of onions that we have, should be divided by 5 kilograms of onions. That is the amount of onions per bag. So I'll write it as total divided by onions per bag. So this is what we need to do. This will give us the number of bags. Now, for us to calculate this, now in this case, this is a question related to bounds. And in the question, it clearly states that we are supposed to calculate the upper bound for the number of bags. If we are to find the upper bound for the number of bags, then in that case, we need to get the largest possible value for the number of bags, which means the total that we have should be written, we need to find the upper bound for the total and the lower bound for the number of, for the amount of onions per bag. Only then we will get the upper bound for the number of bags. Now to find this, the total amount is going to be 620 kilograms. So when it comes to this 620, the amount that it's being rounded to is given to us, which is to the nearest 20. So I need to divide this 20 by 2, because always whatever the amount that is given here, just like whatever the amount to which it's being rounded is given, has to be divided by 2 to figure out how much should be added or deducted to calculate the upper bound or the lower bound. So in this case, this 20 has to be divided by 2, so that is equal to a 10, which means if I'm to calculate the upper bound, I need to add a 10. If I'm to calculate the lower bound, I need to deduct a 10. In this case, we need the upper bound for the total amount of kilograms that we have. So in this case, we need to add this 10 to this 620, which will be 630. So then the total is equal to 630. So that is at the top. Now, the next thing that we got to do is we need to find the onions per bag. So we need to find the lower bound for it. So in this case, 5 kilograms of onions is only in each bag. That means when it comes to 5 kilograms, it's being rounded to the nearest kilogram, that is nearest 1 kilogram. So that 1 has to be divided by 2. So that becomes 0.5. So to calculate the upper bound or the lower bound, you need to add this 0.5 that we have or deduct 0.5. In this case, we need the lower bound for the amount of onions per bag. In that case, from 5, I need to deduct 0.5, which is equal to 4.5, which means the 630 that we have here has to be divided by 4.5. When we divide 630 by 4.5, this gives us 140, which means we end up getting 140 bags. So this is the upper bound for the number of bags of onions that he can pack. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 2. A, B, C, and D are points on a circle. ADX, so ADX, this line, and this line, which is BCX, are straight lines. And angle BAD is equal to X, so that is this angle, and DCX, this angle, is equal to Y. We need to explain why X is equal to Y. Give a geometrical reason for each statement you make. So the first thing is, now A, B, C, and D are 4 points on the circle that connect together to form a quadrilateral. But as the vertices of the quadrilateral is on a circle, we call this quadrilateral as a cyclic quadrilateral, which means we have some theorems related to cyclic quadrilaterals. So one of that is the opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral will make a sum of 180 degrees, which means for this angle, the opposite angle will be this one. So these two together will make a total of 180 degrees. So I can say that X plus angle BCD is equal to 180 degrees. And we need to state the reason as to why that is 180 degrees. So I can say that opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral make a sum of 180 degrees. So I can write this reason. Then the next point is we need to prove that X is equal to Y. Now I know that this angle now is equal to, now I need to find how much this angle is. To find this angle, which is angle BCD, from 180 degrees, I will have to deduct this X because I'm going to bring this X that I have to the other side. So I will have to deduct it. So I now know this angle that I have here is 180 minus X. Then the next thing that I can do is, now I know that this angle BCD is equal to 180 minus X, and this angle DCX is equal to Y. They both are on a straight line, so definitely again they will make a sum of 180 degrees, because angles on a straight line make a sum of 180 degrees. So I can say that angle BCD plus this angle DCX is equal to 180 degrees, and the reason will be angles on a straight line. So angles on a straight line will make a sum of 180 degrees. Now BCD is already known to us, which is 180 minus X, and DCX is also known to us because in the diagram it's given as Y. So I'm going to put that Y here. So plus Y is equal to 180. Now I need to find what X is or what Y is. Then I will know if I can say X is equal to Y or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this minus X to the right side and bring the 180 to the left side. So when I do that, 180, I already have 180 in the left side here. This is this 180. Now I'm going to bring this 180 that is in the right side to the left side. So it gets deducted. Then I have taken the minus X to the other side. So when it goes to the other side, that becomes plus X. And I have plus Y in the left side. Now this 180 and minus 180 will cancel out because that becomes a 0. Therefore, I can clearly say that Y is equal to X, or I can say that X is equal to Y. Show that triangle ABX is similar to triangle CDX. So, in the diagram, ABX is the larger triangle and CDX is the smaller triangle, and we need to show that the two triangles are similar. When two shapes are similar, we say that all the matching angles or the corresponding angles will be equal to each other. At the same time, the ratio of the corresponding sides will be equal, or we say that the sides, the matching sides are proportional. That is what we say. So that is when two shapes are similar. In this question, we need to prove that the larger triangle and the smaller triangle that we had in the diagram are similar. So I have drawn this larger triangle here, and I have separately drawn the larger triangle and the smaller triangle as well, so that it's easier for us to understand it. And now we need to prove that the two triangles are similar. Now, in a triangle, we have three angles. If we prove that two angles of one triangle is equal to the two angles of the other triangle, then definitely the third angle will also be equal, even if we do not mention. So in this case, now we need to prove that they are equal, or at least two of the angles are equal to the two of the angles in the other triangle. Then we can say that the two triangles that are given to us are similar shapes. Now to do this, this is how I'm going to prove that they are similar. So we already know that this angle, which is BAX, so I'll write it here. So angle BAX in the larger triangle, which is ABX, is equal to this angle, which is DCX. So they both are equal because previously we proved that X is equal to Y. So definitely this angle and this angle will be equal. Then if we consider this diagram that is given to us, this angle that is given here is an angle that is in the larger triangle, as well as that same angle is there in the smaller triangle as well, which is this one and this one. They will definitely be equal. So I can say that angle AXB will be equal to angle DXC because it's the same angle. So definitely they will be equal. So now we can also say that now we have proved that two angles in one triangle is equal to the two angles in another triangle. So definitely the third angle will also be equal, which means I can say angle ABX is equal to angle CDX. And I can write the reason as two angles of the triangle are equal. Therefore, the third angle will be equal to. So I can reason out like this. Due to these reasons, I can say that triangle ABX, so I'll write it as hence triangle ABX and triangle CDX are similar. So now we have proved that the two triangles, that is the larger triangle and the smaller triangle, are similar triangles. That is what we are expected to do here. Let's move on to question C. AD is equal to 15 centimeters, DX is equal to 9 centimeters, CX is equal to 12 centimeters, and we are supposed to find what BC is. Now, we clearly know that the larger triangle and the smaller triangle are similar shapes. So I have put the same diagram again, And the way how we prove that these two triangles are similar is by saying that this angle in purple and this angle in purple are equal, and this angle that we have here and this angle that we have here are equal as well. And in this question, they have given that this side AD is 15, DX is given to us as 9, and CX is given to us as 12. I'll label BC as A. So in the larger triangle, this A to X distance will be the sum of 15 and 9 together, which is 24. And this distance B to X will be the sum of A plus 12, A and 12, so I can write it as A plus 12. When we consider the smaller triangle, D to X or DX is 9, and CX is given to us as 12, so I'm going to mark that as well. We need to find what B to C is, so that is this A that I have marked here, that is what we are supposed to find. Like I mentioned previously, when two triangles are similar triangles, their corresponding angles will be equal. At the same time, their matching sides will be proportional, or the ratio of the matching sides will be equal. Now, let me write the larger triangles values at the top and the smaller triangles values at the bottom. If I'm to do that, the side that is matching with this 24, so is going to be, now the way how I identify this 24 is opposite to this angle that I haven't marked. So the side that is matching with this 24 in the smaller triangle is this 12, because this 12 is also opposite to the angle that I haven't marked here, which means this 24 and 12 are matching. So I can write it as 24 over 12. The larger triangle's value I have put at the top, and the side matching with this 24 centimeter side is written at the bottom. So that is the smaller triangle's value. This will be equal to, so I need to relate it with this A plus 12 and the other side that is given to us here, which is 9, to find what this A is. Now, in the next step, we know that the side that is opposite to this angle X is A plus 12, and the side that is opposite to Y is 9, because X and Y, they are equal. So the sides opposite to these two equal angles are A plus 12 and 9. So I can write it as A plus 12 over 9. Now, I need to solve this by cross multiplying to figure out what A is. So I can also, before I cross multiply, I can also simplify this 24 and 12 by dividing both by 12. So I will have a 2 here and a 1 here. And now I can cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, I get 2 times 9. This is equal to, we have a 1 here. 1 times A plus 12 will be the same A plus 12. 2 times 9 is 18. So this 18 is equal to A plus 12. So if I'm to find what A is, from this 18, I need to deduct this 12, because I need to take this 12 to the left side of the equation. So it gets deducted from 18. This gives us the value of A. So this A is actually, we represented BC with A. So I can write it as BC is equal to 18 minus 12 is 6 centimeters. This is the length of BC. Let's move on to the second part of the question. Complete the statement. The ratio of area of triangle ABX to the area of the triangle CDX. So we need to find the ratio of the areas. So triangle ABX's value as is written first, and then triangle CDX's value is written second. So I'm going to write it at the bottom like this. So we need to find the ratio for their areas. First, now from the previous question, we have a relationship between the sides of both the triangles. So ABX is the larger triangle, which had this 24, and the smaller triangle is CDX, which is 12. So I can just relate the sides first, which is 12 24 over 12. So when I simplify this, I end up getting 2 over 1. This is actually the linear scale factor. This is our linear scale factor. Now in the question, they are asking us to find the relationship between the ratio between the area of triangle ABC and the area of triangle CDX. Is actually they are asking us to find the area scale factor. So if we are to calculate the area scale factor for these two triangles, the larger triangle is written at the top, the smaller triangle is written at the bottom, and this 2 over 1 that we have here, I simply need to square it because this is the linear scale factor. I simply need to square this. When I square this, I get 4 at the top and 1 at the bottom, which means the area of the triangle CDX, which is written at the bottom, the ratio is 1, and this value will be this number that we have in the numerator, which is 4, which means the ratio of the area of triangle ABX and the triangle CDX is 4 to 1. Let's move on to question number 3. The table shows information about the marks gained by each of 10 students in a test. So we are given a table with marks and the frequency. We need to calculate the range. So range is the difference between the highest score and the lowest score, or the maximum and the minimum values difference. So the highest score is this 20, the lowest score is 15. So we find the difference between the two. So 20 minus 15 is equal to 5, which means 5 is the range. In the next question, we are supposed to calculate the mean. We are given a table like this. To calculate the mean, we have two formulas. We add all the scores and divide it by the number of scores, or we use fx over f. In this case, the scores are given in a table, so we're going to make use of fx over f, which means the frequency and the value of x should be multiplied together and divided by the total of the frequency. So here, the 15 and its frequency, which is 4. So I need to do 15 times 4, I need to multiply them. Add this with 16 times 1, because 16 is the score, that is the value of x, and 1 is the frequency, so the value of x and the frequency has to be multiplied together. 16 times 1. Likewise, I do for the other columns as well. So I have 17 times 2, 18 times 1, 19 times 0, then I have 20 times 2. I need to add them all together and divide it by the total of the frequency. The total of the frequency will be the addition that we get when all these frequencies are added together, that is 412102. When I add them all together, we end up getting 10. This is already mentioned in the question as well by saying that each of 10 students, 10 students scores are only mentioned here. So we know that the total of the frequency will be a 10. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we end up getting as the mean. So I'm going to put it, so which is 15 times 4. I need to add this with 16 times 1. Then I have 17 times 2. Then I've got 18 times 1. So I have 19 times 0 next. So even if I do not write that, there's no problem, because it will anyways be 0. And then I have 20 times 2. And then in the denominator, I have a 10. So when I do that, I get the value as 16.8. This is the mean. Let's move on to the third question. We are supposed to calculate the median. Median is the score in the middle. In this question, we are given a table and we have a total of 10 scores. So to find the score in the middle, to this 10, I need to add 1 and divide it by 2. So 10 plus 1 is 11. 11, when I divide it by 2, I get 5.5. This means that the 5th score and the 6th score should be added together and divided by 2 to find the median. So when we consider the table that is given, This 4 means that the first 4 scores are 15. This 1 means that the fifth score, so 4 and this one is 5, which means the fifth score is the 16. Therefore, I know that the fifth score is 16. Then when I add this 2 onto this, so we get 5, 5 and 2 is 7. That means the 6th and the 7th scores are this 17, which means the 6th score is a 17. Therefore, to calculate the median, I need to add this 16 and 17 and divide it by 2. So when I add them and divide it by 2, I get 16.5. This is the median. The next question is to calculate the mode. The mode is the most popular score or the most frequent score, which means it has to have the highest frequency. So out of the scores given here, the number or the score that has the highest frequency is 15 because it has a frequency of 4. Therefore, the mode is 15. Let's move on to part B. Paulo's mean mark for 7 homework tasks is 17. After completing the 8th task, his mean mark is 17.5. Calculate Paulo's mark for the 8th task. The first 7 tasks, the score is going to be, the mean mark is 17. Now we already know that when calculating the mean means the average. So we add all the scores and divide it by the number of scores. That means if I write the formula here, the formula is the sum divided by the number of scores. So I'll write it as number of scores here. The sum of scores divided by the number of scores. That means in this question, the mean is given to us. And it clearly states that it's the mark for 7 homework tasks, which means the number of scores is also known to us. Using this, we can calculate the sum of scores. To calculate the sum of scores, I need to take the number of scores to the other side, which means the mean and the number of scores has to be multiplied together to calculate the sum of the scores. In this first sentence that is given to us, the mean is given to us as 17, and I need to times it by the number of scores, which is 7 scores. So when I do 17 times 7, I get 190. I need to do the same process for the next sentence as well, because after completing the 8th task, his mean mark is 17.5. So we know the mean mark and the number of scores as well, which is 8. So we can calculate the sum there as well, which means now according to this, we have 17.5 is the mean. I need to times it with the number of scores, which is 8. So 17.5, when I times it by 8, I get 140. The difference between these two scores will be the mark for the 8th task, which means from 140, I need to deduct 190. This is equal to 21. Therefore, the 8th task, the mark for the 8th task is 21. Let's move on to question C. The table shows the percentage scored by each of 100 students in their final exam. So 0 to 30, the frequency is 12, 30 to 50, it's 18, 50 to 60, it's 35, 60 to 70, 20, and 70 to 100, it's 15. On the grid, draw a histogram to show this information. Now, in the histogram, the frequency density is written in the y-axis, like it's already given here. In this table, we do not have the frequency density, but the frequency is what's given. So first, we need to find the frequency density, only then we can draw the columns here. So to do that, now frequency density is equal to frequency divided by the class width. So first we need to know how much the class width is. So the class width is the difference between the two numbers that we have here, which is 0 to 30. So here the class width is 30. 30 to 50, the class width is 20. 50 to 60, it's 10. 60 to 70, it's going to be 10 again. and 70 to 100 is a 30. So let me just put those values below. So it's going to be 30, 20, 10, 10, and 30. This is what we have. This is the class width. We now need to calculate the frequency density. To calculate the frequency density, the frequency has to be divided by the class width. So the frequency, you divide it by the class width and put the answer here, which means this 12 has to be divided by 30, that is 0.4. 18 divided by 20, that is 0.9. 35 divided by 10, which is 3.5. And then we have 20 divided by 10, that is 2.0 or 2. 15 divided by 30, that is 0.5. Now we know the frequency density for each of these groups that are given, which are the class intervals. Now we can draw the histogram. So 0 to 30, the frequency density is 0.4. So this is 0 to 30. This is where 0.4 is. So I need to connect it and draw the column. So it's 0 to 30. So it's going to be here. This is where 30 is. This is how it should be. Then the next one, 30 to 50. So this is 40, 60. So we have 50 here. This is where 50 is. So 30 to 50, it has a height of 0.9. So 0.9 is going to be somewhere over here. So I'm going to draw the column now. So it will be like this. Next, we have 50 to 60, which is 3.5. So this is 50. This is where 60 is. It has a height of 3.5. So I'm going to go all the way up here. So this is where 3 is. So 3.5 will be here. So I'm going to draw the column now by connecting it like this. And it's from 50 to 60. So this is how it will be. Then the next one is 60 to 70. So this is 60, this is 80. So 70 is right in the middle. So 60 to 70 has a height of 2, the frequency density of 2, which means the height is going to be 2. So it will be like this. And finally, we have 70 to 100, which has a height of 0.5. So 0.5 is going to be here. So I need to draw the column or the rectangle here. This is how the frequency histogram has to be drawn. Let's move on to question 4. The diagram shows a pyramid with a square base BCDE. BCDE is a square base, which means all 4 sides of the base are equal. The diagonals CE and BD intersect at M, and the vertex F is directly above M. So this M is the midpoint of the square. That is where the 2 diagonals intersect, and that gets connected to this point F, or to the vertex F. BE is equal to 12 centimeters, so that is already marked in the diagram, and FM is equal to 9 centimeters, that is also marked in the question, in this diagram that is given here. Calculate the volume of the pyramid. The formula to calculate the volume of the pyramid is given to us, which is 1/3 times A times H. So this A is the base area and H is the vertical height. So it's the vertical height, so that is the height from F to M. So simply substitute the values here. So volume is equal to 1/3 times A is the area of the base. The base is a square. To calculate the area of the square, I need to times 12 and 12 together. And I need to multiply with the height. The height is 9. So I'm going to solve this. So when I multiply them, I end up getting 432. And this will be 432 cubic centimeters, which will be the volume of this pyramid. So let me write it like this. Then the next part of the question is to calculate the total surface area of the pyramid. Whenever we get a question related to surface area, always identify the number of faces that particular shape will have. In this case, it is a pyramid. So a pyramid is made out of 4 triangles, and in this case, the base is a square. So we have 5 faces altogether. So simply calculate the area of all 5 faces and add them up together. The base that we have is a square. So to calculate the surface area of this pyramid, I need to calculate the area of the base, which is a square that is 12 times 12. I need to add this with the area of the triangles that we have. All 4 triangles will be identical because the base is a square and they all meet the same point F. So they will all be equal. The areas of all triangles will be equal. And to calculate the area of a triangle, we do half times base times the perpendicular height. But in this case, the base will be B2C, or BC will be the base. But the perpendicular height of the triangle will not be 9. The perpendicular height of the triangular face is what we are supposed to, we need to first find that. That is going to be this distance that we have here. This perpendicular height, we first need to calculate, and then that is only substituted into the area formula to calculate the area of this triangle that we have. So to find the value of h, what we got to do is we're going to make use of this triangle that we have. So this one, and I'm going to connect these two points. So this right angle triangle has to be used to calculate the area of this side here, which I've marked as h. To find that, m to this point is going to be half of 12, so this is going to be 6. I can apply Pythagoras' theorem and find this hypotenuse because this h is the hypotenuse for this triangle. So I need to square these two, add them together and square root it to calculate the hypotenuse. So the two sides are 9 and 6. So I need to square them, add them together and square root it to calculate the height. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and let's see what we get. So square root 9 squared plus 6 squared. And when we do this, we end up getting 10.8166. So I can write it to about 2 decimal places as 10.82. So h is 10.82. This is going to be this distance that we have here. Now I need to calculate the area of this triangular face that I have shaded there. So I need to do half times the base of the triangle, which is 12, times the height of the triangle, which is this 10.82 that we found. This will give us the area of the triangular face. But in the pyramid, we have 4 identical triangular faces, which means this amount has to be multiplied by 4. Now we have 4 faces here, and this square face together makes the 5 faces of that shape, of that solid. Now we need to put this in the calculator, and if you find, the answer that you get is going to be the surface area of the pyramid that is given. So it will be 12 times 12 plus, I can write half, so that is 1 over 2. I can also simplify and put it as 4, or directly put everything into the calculator itself. So I'm going to put this 10.82, and then I need to times it by this 4. So when I do this, I end up getting 403.68. So 403.68 square centimeters will be the surface area of this pyramid. Let's move on to question B. The diagram shows a toy made from a cone and a hemisphere. So we have a cone here and a hemisphere. The base radius of the cone and the radius of the hemisphere, they both are r. and the slant height of the cone is given to us as 3r. The total surface area of the toy is given to us as 304 square centimeters. We need to calculate what this r is. And the formula to calculate the curved surface area of the cone is given to us as pi r L. And the curved surface area of a sphere is only given to us, which is 4 pi r squared. Here, the curved surface area of the cone is important, which is pi r L. And here they have given us the curved surface area of the sphere. But the shape in the diagram is a hemisphere, which means if we are to calculate the total surface area of this toy that is given to us, we need to find the curved surface of the cone. So curved surface of the cone should be added with the hemisphere, which means the curved surface area of the cone is given to us as pi is found by using pi r L. So I'm going to put that here, pi r L. We will do the substitution, but first we will identify the formulas. Then we need to calculate the curved surface of the hemisphere. So hemisphere is going to be this outer region only. Now, if the shape that we have here has no cone, and if it's just the hemisphere, and if it's a solid hemisphere, that means the top will also be covered. In that case, we will use the formula 3 pi r squared as the surface area for the solid hemisphere. But if it's a hollow hemisphere, which means the circle is not covered here, or in this case, like in this case, the cone and the hemisphere are connected, so we only need the outer surface here, that is this shell-like portion. In that case, we go with the surface area of a hemisphere, which is 2 pi r squared, that is exactly half of 4 pi r squared. So I need to use 2 pi r squared here for this. And I got to substitute the values and find what we are asked to find here, which is r. The total surface area is already given to us in the question, which is 304. So I can say that this 304 is equal to pi times the radius of the cone is r. The slant height of the cone is given to us as 3r. At that width, 2 times pi times the radius of the hemisphere is r. So that's going to be r squared. So I can multiply these. So 3 times pi times r. So that's going to be 3 pi r squared. And here I have 2 pi r squared. This is equal to 304. These two are like terms, so I can add them further. That will make 5 pi r squared, which means this 304 is equal to 5 pi r squared. Now I need to make r the subject. To make r the subject, I need to divide both the sides by 5 pi. So 304, when I divide by 5 pi, in the right side, I will be left with r squared, because 5 and 5 will cancel out. Pi and pi also will cancel out, leaving us with r squared. So if I'm to find what r is, I need to square root the value that I get here, because only then the square and the square root will cancel out. So the square root of 304 over 5 pi is what? Over 5 pi is what r is equal to. So I'm going to put this in the calculator. So the square root fraction, I have 304 in the numerator, and I have 5 pi in the denominator. So this is equal to 4.399, which means, correct to 2 decimal places, it will be 4.40. So I'll write it as 4.40 centimeters. This will be the value of r. Let's move on to question 5. Factorize x squared minus x minus 12. Now, we have 3 terms here. This is a quadratic expression. We got to factorize it, so we need to put it into 2 brackets. In this case, the coefficient of x squared is a 1. Now, what we got to do is, we got to find the 2 numbers that multiply together to give us this last term, which is this negative 12, and the 2 numbers that add together to give us the coefficient of x, which is negative 1. We need to find what those 2 numbers are. So when we find the two numbers will be 4 and 3, that makes it a 12. And when we subtract it, we can get a 1, which means the sign for this 4 should be negative and the 3 has to be positive. We already know that the coefficient of x squared is a 1. In that case, directly we can put this inside the brackets as you're going to put x and 1 of this number, which is -4. And in the other bracket also we will put x and the other number, which is this +3. So this is what we will have. So these are the factors of this expression, which is x squared minus x minus 12. Part 2, simplify. We have a fraction here, an algebraic fraction. So first I'm going to factorize this. X squared minus 16, they both are square numbers with a minus in between, or x is a variable that has a square and 16 is a perfect square as well. We have a minus in between. So this is called as the difference of squares. So to factorize the difference of squares, you got to do something like doing the square root of the two numbers, and then you can put them within the brackets with a plus and a minus, which means this x squared minus 16, I can write it as x and 4, and inside the brackets, one of the bracket I'm going to write a minus and the other one a plus, or I can write plus and then a minus. And I'm going to factorize the denominator as well, which is x squared minus x minus 12. But this is already factorized in the previous question, which is x minus 4 and x plus 3. So I'm going to just substitute it here. Now I'm going to simplify this. Both the numerator and the denominator, they both have x minus 4, so I can cross that out. This will leave me with x plus 4 over x plus 3. We cannot factorize this or simplify, we cannot simplify this further. So this is our final answer, which is x plus 4 over x plus 3. Let's move on to part B. We need to simplify 2x minus 3 square minus x plus 1 square. First, I'm going to expand each bracket separately, and then I'm going to do the subtraction. Now, when I consider this 2x minus 3 with the square, it means that 2x minus 3 is multiplied with 2x minus 3. That's the meaning. So when I have two brackets to expand it, this is what I need to do. Using this 2x, I need to times this 2x. That's going to be 4x squared. 2x times minus 3 is equal to minus 6x. Minus 3 times 2x is minus 6x. Minus 3 times minus 3 is plus 9. I'm going to combine these two, which makes minus 12x. I have 9 here, and then I've got 4x squared. This is what I have. Now I got to do the same thing with this x plus 1 squared as well. So I'm going to write it here. So I have x plus 1 squared. This means x plus 1 gets multiplied with x plus 1. So x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x, or I can write it as x. 1 times x is 1x. 1 times 1 is 1. This x and x is equal to 2x. I have x squared here, and then I have this 1. Now I'm going to bring that back into this question here, and I'm going to do the substitution now. So instead of this 2x minus 3 square, I can write 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Instead of this x plus 1 squared, I can write x squared plus 2x plus 1. I need to subtract the entire answer that I get here from this answer that I have here. So I have 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Now I need to get rid of this bracket here. So I have a minus, which means all the terms that I have in this expression is being deducted. So minus times x squared is minus x squared. Minus times 2x is minus 2x. Minus times plus 1 is minus 1. Now I no longer have the brackets. If we do not put the brackets, only the x squared, it'll mean that only this x squared is being subtracted, which is incorrect. The entire answer that we get here has to be subtracted. Now I need to combine the like terms. So I have 4x squared minus x squared, which is equal to 3x squared. Then I have minus 12x and minus 2x, which is minus 14x. Then I have plus 9 and minus 1, which is plus 8. So the answer is 3x squared minus 14x plus 8. Let's move on to question C. Simplify as a single fraction in its simplest form. We have two fractions given to us with a subtraction. So in this case, whether it's addition or subtraction, it's very important that the denominators are the same. So the first thing that we got to do here is to make the denominators the same. So the denominator that I'm going to write is going to be x plus 1 and x minus 3. That is going to be the common denominator. So the way how I get this x plus 1 and x minus 3 as the common denominator is because this first expression has a denominator of x plus 1. I'm going to times that with x minus 3. So its numerator also gets times by x minus 3. So I can write here as this 2x plus 4. And I'll put this x minus 3 after this, or even before that if I write, there's no problem. So I'll write it this way. So these two should be multiplied together. So that will be the numerator for the first fraction now that we have made the denominator the same. The second fraction has x minus 3 in the denominator. For these two fractions to have the same denominator, I need to times this with x plus 1. I need to do the same thing to its numerator as well, which means I have minus and x here. So using this minus x, I need to times x plus 1. Now I need to solve this by expanding it. So first I need to expand it. So to do that, 2x, now I have two brackets here. So when we have two brackets, I need to multiply both the terms in the first bracket with both the terms in the second bracket. So 2x times x is 2x squared. Then I have 2x times minus 3, which is minus 6x. 4 times x, which is 4x. 4 times minus 3, which is minus 12. Then using this minus x, I need to times both the terms in the second bracket. So minus x times x is minus x squared. Minus x times 1 is minus x, or minus 1x. So this will be written over this denominator, which is x plus 1, x minus 3. Now I need to combine all the like terms. So I have 2x squared minus x squared, that is equal to x squared. Then I have minus 6x plus 4x and minus x. So minus 6x and plus 4x is minus 2x. Minus 2x and minus x is minus 3x. And I have this minus 12, which I'm going to write it here. And this is written over the denominator, which is this x plus 1, x minus 3. Now, it's very important that you factorize the numerator as well, because sometimes the numerator, the factorized form, can get simplified with the denominator that we have. But in this expression that is given, when we try to factorize it, we will try finding the two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 12, and the two numbers that add together to give us this negative 3. There aren't any two in any of the factor pairs of 12 will not add together to give you negative 3. This is how I know that this numerator, which is x squared minus 3x minus 12, cannot be factorized further, which means this is going to be our final answer. If we can factorize, it's very important that you factorize and put it into two brackets and simplify with the denominator if there is anything that can be simplified. Let's move on to question D. We need to expand and simplify. We are given 3 brackets here. So we need to multiply all 3 brackets together. In this question, we can start with any 2 brackets by expanding any 2 brackets. So I'm going to expand the second and the last bracket first. So that will be x times 2x, so that is 2x squared. X times 1, that is 1x. minus 5 times 2x, that is minus 10x, minus 5 times 1, that is minus 5. And I'm going to simplify this. So I get 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. This is what I get as the answer when I expand these two brackets. And in front, I have x minus 3. I now need to multiply these two brackets together. X times 2x squared is 2x cubed. X times minus 9x is minus 9x squared. X times minus 5 is minus 5x. Then minus 3 times 2x squared is minus 6x squared. Minus 3 times minus 9x is plus 27x. And then we have minus 3 times minus 5, that is plus 15. Now I need to combine all the like terms that I have. So I have this 2x cubed, so I'm going to write it as it is because it does not have any other like term. When I consider this 9x squared, I have minus 6x squared. So minus 9x squared and minus 6x squared together is minus 15x squared. Then I have minus 5x plus 27x. Together it will be 22x, which is positive 22x. And then I have this 15. This is what I get when I expand and simplify. Let's move on to question E. In this question, we have two equations given. So we need to, these two are simultaneous equations. And to solve this, now the first equation that is given to us is a straight line equation because we cannot find any squares for x here. But the second equation that is given to us, the x in the second equation has a square, which means that is a quadratic equation, which means this is now to solve simultaneous equations mean that the quadratic equation and the quadratic curve and the straight line intersect at 2 points. So the coordinates of those 2 points are what we are supposed to find. Like you can see here, this is a quadratic curve. This is a straight line graph. The two graphs are intersecting at 2 points. The coordinates of those points of intersection is what we are supposed to find when a straight line graph and a quadratic graph are supposed to be solved in the form of simultaneous equations. Now to do this, we're going to make use of the substitution method. So to do that, I'm going to first isolate x here. So when I isolate x, I need to bring this minus 3y to the other side. That becomes plus 3y. So I can write it as x is equal to 3y, and already I have 13, so I can write it as 3y plus 13. Now, this expression that I have here, which is 3y plus 13, that is equal to x. So in the second equation, wherever I find x, I'm going to substitute this expression that I have, which is 3y plus 12, which means when I substitute it here, I already have a 2 in front. So x is 3y plus 13. It has a square, so I need to put a square like this, minus 9y, which is equal to 116. I need to expand this and solve it. So first to expand this, before I multiply with the 2, I need to multiply 3y plus 13 with itself because it has a square. So if I'm to do that, so let me write it here. So 3y plus 13 with a square means 3y plus 13 is multiplied with 3y plus 13. So 3y times 3y is 9y squared. 3y times 13 that I have here. So when I multiply 3 and 13 together, we end up getting 39. So I can write it as 39y. 13 times 3 is the same 39y again. And then I have 13 times 13, which is equal to 169. So now I can combine these two 39y's together because they are like terms. So when I combine them, that becomes equal to 78y. So I have 9y squared plus 78y plus 169. So this is what I get when these two brackets are multiplied together or when expanded. Now, even if I don't do it in the side like this, I can directly find the answer as well. That is, this 3y with this 3y plus 13 has a square means we first square the first term. So the first term inside the bracket is 3y. When I square that, I get 9y squared. Then we square the last term. So the second term inside the bracket is 13. You square that, that becomes 169. To find this term in the middle, you times the first term and the second term that is inside the brackets. So 3y and 13, we multiply together. So when we multiply together, we get 39y. And always the answer that we get there has to be times by 2. So when I times it by 2, I get this 78y. So even if I don't do it this way, I can do it using the method that I just explained. So I will have 2 bracket, the answer for this is 9y squared plus 78y plus 169. And then I need to close the brackets. It's important that I put the brackets here because this entire expression that I have here with the square is multiplied by 2. So the answer that I get there when I expand also should be times by 2. And then I need to deduct this 9y. So this will be equal to 160. I'm going to expand this by multiplying all 3 terms inside the brackets with the 2 that is outside the brackets. So 2 times 9y squared is equal to 18y squared. 2 times 78y is equal to 156y. Then I have 2 times 169, which is equal to 338. And then I have this minus 9y, which is equal to this 160. I'm going to bring this 116 also to this side. So I will have 18y squared. Then I have 156 minus 9. So from 156, when I minus 9y, I get 147y. So that's plus 147y. Then I have 338 here. When I bring this 116 to this side, it will get this 116 will get subtracted or deducted from 338. So from 338, when I deduct 116, I end up getting 222. So I can just write it as 222. This is equal to 0. Now, when we consider this equation that is given, this is a quadratic equation because as you can see, the y that we have here, the variable that we have here, has a highest power of 2. So I can make use of the quadratic formula to solve it, or I may solve this quadratic equation by using the factorizing method or the completing the square method. The easier one is the formula method. So I'm going to substitute it into the formula and solve it. But before we do the substitution, I can see all these 3 terms have something in common. That is, they all have 3 in common. So I'm going to divide this entire expression by 3. If I do a change to one side of the equation, I need to do the same change to the other side of the equation as well. So this 18y squared, when I divide it by this 3, I get 6y squared. 147, when I divide by 3, I get 49y. And 222, when I divide it by 3, I get 74. And in the right side, when the 0 is divided by a 3, that will anyways be a 0. So this 0, no matter what number is used there, that will always give us a 0. Now, this is the quadratic equation that we have. And in this equation, now for me to substitute into the quadratic formula, now the equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So the value of a is this value, which is the coefficient of the term with the square, that is 6. The value of b is the number in front of y, which is this 49, that is positive. And the value of c is this number that we have here, that is the constant term, which is 74. Now I know what a, b, and c is. So I'm going to now substitute this into the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, I have written it here. So that is equal to x is equal to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, this entire thing over 2a. This is equal to x in this formula that I have written here, because here the equation that I have written is ax squared plus bx plus c, because the variable there is x. In this question here, the variable that we have is y. That means this will give us the value of y. Now I'm going to do the substitution here. So that will be minus the value of b, which is 49. I have plus minus, and I have to put the square root. So square root of b squared, b is 49, so I need to square that 49, minus 4 times the value of a, which is 6, times the value of c, which is 74, and then I need to divide it by 2 times the value of a. The value of a is 6. When I solve this, this will give us the value of y, not x. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So in the calculator, if I'm to put it, so I have minus 49, and then I have this plus sign, so I'll put the plus first. Square root 49 squared minus 4 times 6 times 74 divided by 2 times 6. So when I do this, I get negative 2. So that is one value for y. And to find the other value for y, this after minus 49, I need to put a minus. So I'm going to change this minus, plus that I have here, into a minus and see what I get as the value. So when I do that, I get minus 37 over 6, which means the two values that we get for y are minus 2 and minus 37 over 6. So these two are the y values, and let me put those y values here, which is minus 2 and minus 37 over 6. Now we know the y values, we need to find what their x values are. To find the values of x, we need to substitute the values of y that we found here into the equation that we have here, into any of the two equations that we have. I'm going to make use of the first equation because already we have made x the subject there. So we know x is equal to, so let me write it here. So we know that x is equal to 3y plus 13. So x is equal to 3y plus 13. I'm going to substitute the values of y and see what I get. So I need to do 3 times the value of y is this negative 2. So when negative 2 is substituted, we're going to find what we get. The same way, 3 times the value of y. So the value of y is minus 37 over 6. I'm going to substitute it here, plus 13. So I'm going to put these two into the calculator and see what we get as the values for x. So these will give us the value of x. So that's going to be 3 times negative 2. And then from that, to that, I need to add 13. When I do that, I get 7. Then next, I need to do 3 times negative 37 over 6. So let me put negative 37 over 6. And then I need to do plus 13 after multiplying it. So when I do that, I get minus 11 over 2, which means this value that I get here is 7, and this value that I get is minus 11 over 2. Therefore, the values of x will be 7 and minus 11 over 2. The value of x is 7 only when the y value is negative 2. So that now when it's negative 2, I need to put 7. When the value of y is negative 37 over 6, the value of x we get is negative 11 over 2. We cannot swap them around. So these will be the two coordinate, the two pairs of x values and the y values. And this is like when the two graphs intersect, these two coordinate points are written here. That's the meaning. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 6. In this question, this is a question that is based on trigonometry, where we will have to make use of sine rule, cosine rule as well. So let's see how we can do this. The diagram shows triangle ABC with AB is equal to 17.2. Then this angle ABC is 54. And this angle ACB is equal to 68. The first question is to calculate AC. So AC is this distance that we have here. We need to calculate this. Now, when we consider this larger triangle, which is ABC, two angles are known. This side AB is known. Even though BC is not known completely, a part of that BC is known. Now, in this case, to find AC, we're going to make use of the sine rule, because the side opposite to this angle is known. The side opposite to this angle is what we are supposed to find, that is AC. So we can make use of the sine rule. We need to make use of the sine rule to find what this AC is. Sine rule is where we write the side lengths on top and they're matching sine angles at the bottom. That means in this case, or I can even flip it the other way around and write it. There's no problem with that. It'll be the same. So in this case, I'm going to write this 17.2 at the top, and at the bottom, I need to write the sine angle that is opposite to this 17.2, which is this 68. So that's going to be sine 68. This will be equal to, I need to write this side. So this side is AC and its sine angle, which is sine 54. Now I need to solve this to find what AC is. So I need to cross multiply and isolate AC. Or simply, I can bring this sine 54 to the other side. So I can isolate AC, which means this AC will be equal to 17.2 times sine 54. And then I need to divide it with sine 68. Divide it with sine 68. I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value for AC. So I'm going to put the fraction 17.2 times sine 54, and then I need to divide it with sine 68. So when I do that, I get 15.0079. So correct to 2 decimal places, it'll be 15.01. So that's the value of AC. So I'll write it as 15.01 centimeters as the value for AC. The next question is, M lies on BC and MC is equal to 12.8 centimeters. Calculate AM. So AM is this line. So this is the distance that we are supposed to calculate. So from the first part of the question, we already figured out what AC is. So this distance is 15.01 centimeters. So we figured it out from the first part. Then we now need to calculate what AM is, that is this side. So when we consider this triangle, these two sides of the triangle are known and the angle here is known. The side that is right opposite to the angle is what we are supposed to calculate. So two sides and an angle is given. We need to find another side. We need to find the third side, which means we cannot use the sine rule here. In this case, we are going to make use of the cosine rule, because cosine rule, if we apply, then we can directly find the value of this side length, which is AM. So to find that, I need to square these two sides. So I'm going to write, I have 15.01 centimeters. So that's going to be 15 point, I need to square 15.01, and then I need to square 12.8. I need to deduct 2 times 15.01 times 12.8 times the cos angle. So cos angle, that is cos 68. And I need to do the square root of this answer. So when I do the square root of this answer, this will give us how much A to M is. The reason why we need to square root this is because the equation for the cosine rule is A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. So here, to get rid of this square, I need to square root this entire thing. That's the reason why we had to put the square root. And we need to keep in mind that this side and this angle will be opposite to each other. So that is how I figured that. To find, now this angle 68 is given. So I need to start with this AM. So that is AM is equal to 15.01 squared and I need to put the other side squared and subtract the rest. I'm now going to put this in the calculator and see what we get. So that will be the value of AM. So we have the square root and we have 15.01 squared plus 12.8 squared minus 2 times 15.01 times 12.8 times cos of the angle, which is cos 68. So when I do this, I get 15.658. So I can write it as 15.66 correct to 2 decimal places. So the value of AM is 15.66 centimeters. Now the next question is to calculate the shortest distance from A to BC. Now this is A, this is the side BC. I need to calculate the shortest distance. This shortest distance indirectly means to calculate the perpendicular height. So I need to calculate the perpendicular height, that is from A to BC. So if I'm to draw the perpendicular height from A to BC, it will be something like this. This height that we have here is what we are supposed to calculate. Now, to calculate this height that is given here, I'm going to make use of this triangle that we have here. So in this triangle, we have a 90-degree angle. This angle is 68 degrees. One side is known to us, that is 15.01. This 15.01 is the hypotenuse for this triangle. And this H is the opposite side for this angle, which means when it comes to opposite side and the hypotenuse, if you check SOHCAHTOA, the one with the opposite side and the hypotenuse is sine. So I will have to apply sine. So sine 68, sine theta is equal to opposite over the hypotenuse. In the diagram, the opposite side is H and the hypotenuse is known to us, which is 15.01. Now I need to make H the subject because that is the shortest distance from A to BC. So to do that, I need to bring this 15.01 to the other side. So it will get multiplied with sine 68. So H is equal to 15.01 times sine 68. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value of H. So let's do it then. So we have 15.01. I need to times it with sine 68. So when I do that, I get 13.917, which means correct to 2 decimal places. It's going to be 13.92. So 13.92 centimeters is the value of H. Let's move on to question 7. So the column vectors for P and Q are given to us. So we need to find what 3Q is. So 3Q will be 3 times the column vector of Q, which is -4, 5. So when I multiply it, both the numbers inside the brackets has to be multiplied by 3. So that will be 3 times -4, which is -12. And 3 times 5, that is 15. So it will be -12, 15. That's the answer for the first part. Part 2a, find P minus Q. So from the column vector of P, which is 8 minus 5, I need to subtract the column vector of Q, which is -4, 5. So I need to do this subtraction. So the numbers at the top, so it will be like 8 minus -4. So 8 minus -4 is the same as a 12. Then we need to do -5 minus 5. So -5 minus 5 is equal to -10, which means the column vector will be 12 and -10. The next question is to find the modulus of P minus Q. This means that to find the length of P minus Q. So that is like you're trying to find the hypotenuse in a right-angled triangle. So this P minus Q has a vector of 12 and negative 10 means it's going to go from, now if I pick a point here, it means that it will move 12 units to the, 12 minus 10 means it will move 12 units to the right, and then it's going to go minus 10 means it's going to go 10 units down. That's the meaning, which means to find the modulus of P minus Q means you are expected to find this distance that we have here. So this is like the hypotenuse for this right-angled triangle. So to find the hypotenuse, we square the two shorter legs together, add them together, and then we need to square root it. So I'm going to put this in the calculator. So we have square root 12 squared plus 10 squared. So when I do that, that gives us 15.62. So this 15.62 is the modulus of P minus Q, or the hypotenuse here. So that's going to be 15.62. Let's move on to part B. We have a vector question here. So in triangle OMN, O is the origin. So this is the origin. O to M is given to us as A. O to N is B. S is a point on MN such that MS to SN is 5 to 3. So it has a ratio of 5 to 3. So I'll just write it this way. Now, we need to find in terms of A or B, A and or B, the position vector of S. Now, when they say the position vector of S, it means that from the origin, you need to find where S is. So that means simply the origin is O, that is already mentioned in the question. So we are supposed to find what O to S is, that is the question. And we need to write our answer in the simplest form. To find O to S, first I'm going to connect O to O and S. So this is what we are supposed to find, O to S. The route that I would take to reach from O to S will be O to M and M to S. So O to S is the same as O to M and then M to S. So O to M is A. So that is already known. I need to find what M to S is. So to find what M to S is, I need to find what M to N is. So in the question, I need to find what M to N is. So from M to N, if I'm to find what M to N is, I need to go from M to O and then O to N. So M to O plus O to N is equal to M to N. M to O is going to be negative A because O to M is A, so M to O will be negative A. O to N is B, so M to N will be negative A plus B. Now, this portion has a ratio of 5 to 3 as it's already given, and I have marked here as well, which means in total, if we split this into, if in total they will have 8 parts, that means in total, if they have 8 parts, M to S will be 5 out of it. So I can write the fraction here as 5 out of 8 times this length, which is M to N, which is 5/8 of minus A plus B. So we now know what M to S is, which is 5/8 times minus A plus B. I need to expand this and simplify it. So 5/8 times minus A will be minus 5/8 A. So I can write it as A, this A already. And 5/8 times minus A will be minus 5/8A. Then 5/8 times this B will be plus 5/8B. Now I'm going to combine these two together. So in front of this A, there's no number, means we have a whole number here. So that's going to be 1 minus 5/8, which is the same as 3/8. 3/8 or 3/8. So 3/8A plus 5/8B. This is going to be O to S, or the position vector of S. So this is the answer. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 8. On the axis, sketch the graph of y is equal to 4 minus 3x. So we are expected to sketch this. Now, in this equation, x has no square to it. And this equation is in the form y is equal to mx plus c, which means this is a straight line. So I'm going to rearrange it in a way where I'm going to write the term with the x first and then the y-intercept next. So I can write it as, write this equation. This equation can be written as y is equal to minus 3x, and I have this plus 4. I'm going to write it this way. This 4 that we have here is the value for c, which is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept means that is the place where the graph hits the y-axis. So in this case, this is the y-intercept. So the place where the graph hits the y-axis is going to be the y-intercept. And this negative 3 that we have here is the gradient, which means here the value of m is a negative value. When the gradient is negative, the graph that we get will be a decreasing graph. That means a line that goes down like this. Which means now for me to, sketch this graph, first I will just mark some points like this, as I will just break them into tiny portions like this so that we can try and get as accurate as possible. So it is a sketch. So I'm gonna just mark it like that, and let me mark it as 2, 4, and even if I, okay, yeah, we can just mark it. So I'll mark the values in this side as well. So just add another one. So we have -2, -4. I didn't put all the values because it will be a little messy if I do so. So I'm just going to skip count and put the values like this. So the first thing that I'm going to mark is the y-intercept, which is plus 4. This is the y-intercept because y-intercept is the place where the graph hits the y-axis. So this is what I'm going to mark. Now I know that the gradient is this -3. The denominator of this gradient is nothing, means there is always an invisible one. And the formula to calculate the gradient is rise over run, which means it has a rise of -3 and a run of 1. That means that from the y-intercept, as the rise is negative, it has to go 3 units down, and the run is 1. I need to go 1 unit across. So I'm going to mark this coordinate here. I'm going to mark another point just like I did here. So the rise is 3. I need to go down by 3 and 1 unit across. So this is where I need to mark 1, 2, 3 and 1 across. So this is where the next point is. So I have marked 3 points here. Now I'm going to connect these 3 points with a straight line. So this is how the straight line will be. So this is going to be the sketch of that graph. Let's move on to the next question. Part B. On the axis, sketch the graph y is equal to -x squared. Now, this x has a power of 2, and that is the highest power that we can find for x. And whenever the highest power of x is a 2, this is always a quadratic graph. And this quadratic graph that we have has a negative in front. So whenever there is a negative in front of a quadratic equation for a quadratic graph, the graph will be in the shape of n. And here there is no number being added or connected to this -x squared, which means the y-intercept is 0. The place where it hits the y-axis will be 0. So you can just remember it this way. Negative sign in front will create this n. So I can just highlight this n and this n, which means positive will be in the shape of u. And here the y-intercept is going to be 0, which means the graph that we would draw would be a graph like this in the shape of an N like this. It will be a symmetric graph. Okay, it should be symmetric. Okay. Then the next one, let's see what we have, which is question C. Find the coordinates of the turning points of the graph of y is equal to 10 plus 9x squared minus 2x cubed. You must show all your workings. Now here, there are some key points that we need to understand. That is this term, turning points. And we are given an equation here. We need to first understand or identify if the equation given to us is a quadratic equation or a cubic equation. Now, if this was a quadratic equation, then to find the turning points, we will have to complete the square and then we will have to figure the turning point. But here, the highest power of x is a 3, which means this is a cubic equation or a cubic graph. So when we have cubic graph, to find the turning point, we will have to make use of the differentiation or the derivative function. So this turning point is also another key point to keep in mind. That is, whenever you see the terms turning point, maximum point, minimum point, or stationary point, it means that the gradient at that point is equal to 0. Which means we need to find the coordinates of the turning point where the gradient will be equal to 0. So here I can mention it as gradient equal to 0. Now, to figure this out, first I need to find the derivative function, or I need to differentiate it, differentiate this equation that is given to us. So the equation that we have is y is equal to, I'm going to rearrange this, and I'll put the term with the cube in front. So that's going to be minus 2x cubed. And the term with the square next, that is plus 9x squared. And then the number that is plus 10. Now to differentiate this, the power of x should be multiplied with its coefficient. So that's 3 times negative 2, that is negative 6. I need to write the x and reduce the power by 1. So the power of x is a 3. So when I reduce it by 1, that is a 2. So I get minus 6x squared. Next, I have the power of x is 2. I need to times it with the coefficient, that is 9 here. So 2 times 9 is 18. So 18, that is plus 18. And then I'm going to write this x, reduce the power of x by 1. So I have x squared. I need to reduce it by 1. That becomes x to the power 1 or just x. And the next one, there is no x. So we cannot do anything. That will become a 0 anyways. So this will be the formula for the derivative function or differentiation. Which means this actually means that this is the gradient. This is like the gradient formula. So in the question, we are asked to find the turning points. So to find the turning points means at the turning points, whether it's the maximum point or the minimum point, the gradient is equal to a 0. Which means I need to substitute 0 here. So this 0 will be equal to minus 6x squared plus 18x. Now I need to solve this. I need to factorize this. To factorize, because only then I can find what x is. So I can even make use of the quadratic formula. That's absolutely fine. We will still end up getting the same answer. I'm going to make use of the factorizing method here. So I'm going to factorize this. So for these two terms, they both have minus 6 as well as x in common. So I'm going to take that out. So the rest I'm going to put within the brackets, which is x, because minus 6x times x is just minus 6x squared. And from this 18x, we have taken minus 6x. So that's like this 18x is divided by minus 6x. You will be left with minus 3. So that goes inside the brackets. This is equal to this 0. Which means this minus 6x times this x minus 3 is equal to 0. So I can write it as minus 6x times this x minus 3 is equal to 0. Mostly, we end up getting two brackets being multiplied together and is equal to 0. Then the next step that we would do is to make both the brackets equal to 0 and find the value of x. But in this case, we have one bracket and here there is a term, which is this minus 6x. So here directly we can say that this minus 6x will be equal to 0. Or we can also say that this x is equal to 0 directly. Therefore, I can say I will write it as minus 6x is equal to 0, and this x minus 3 is equal to 0. I need to make x the subject, so take the minus 6 that is multiplying to the other side, which will get divided. So 0 divided by minus 6 will anyways be a 0. Then I have x minus 3 is equal to a 0. So I'm going to take this minus 3 to the other side. This gives me the value of x as a positive 3. Now we have figured out the values of x, so which is 0 and 3. Now I need to find the coordinates of the turning points, which means we need to find the y values. Now to find the y values, we know the values of x. We need to substitute the values of x into the cubic equation to find the value of y. We do not substitute that into the the derivative function. We do not substitute it there, but we substitute it into the cubic equation that is given in the question. So that is, we have y is equal to minus 2x cubed plus 9x squared plus 10. I'm going to substitute the value of 0 as well as 3 and see what we get as the y values. So it will be minus 2 times, when x is 0, so it's going to be 0 cubed plus 9 times 0 squared plus 10. So we are going to find the value for y here. At the same time, the other y value will be when we substitute the value of x with 3. So it's going to be minus 2 times 3 cubed plus 9 times 3 squared plus 10. So we are going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the values for y. So it will be minus 2, so minus 2 bracket 0 cube, and then I need to add 9 times 0, so 0 squared, because anyways it will be a 0, but I'm going to just put it the same way as it is, and this plus 10. When I do that, I get the value of y as 10. Now this 0 that we have here, I'm going to change it into 3's, because I'm going to find the answer for the other y value. So when I do that, the other y value we get is 37, which means here the values we end up getting is 10 and 37. Therefore, it will be when x is 0, the y value that we got was 10. When the value of x is 3, the y value that we got is 37. So these two will be the coordinates of the turning points. In the next part of the question, determine whether each turning point is a maximum or a minimum and show how you decide. So now the two coordinate points are 0, 10, and we have 3 and 37. Now to do this, I'm going to just represent this in a grid and see where we end up marking the two coordinate points. So if I randomly mark this, if I mark this point 0 and 10, the value of x is 0, the y value is 10, it will be marked somewhere over here, or maybe like somewhere over here. If I consider 3 and 37, 3 is here, so 37 will be somewhere above this 10, because this is somewhere over 10. So 37 will be, this is 0 and 10. 3 and 37 means this is 3, and 37 will be somewhere over, I'll just mark it as 37 here. So this is somewhere we have, this is where we have 37, but this is just a small sketch that I'm trying to draw. So now this is, according to the question, this is a cubic graph, which means if I try to graph this, the graph would look like this, because this is going to be the lowest and this is the highest. So the graph would look something like this. So it's going to go like this, and it would reach a point like this and something like this, which means this point that we have here is the maximum point, and this point that we have is the minimum point, which means this 0, 10 that we have here is the minimum point, and the next point that is given to us that we found in the previous step, which is 3 and 37, is the maximum point. So this sketch will be how we have shown how we figured out which one is the maximum and the minimum point. So we don't have to write any reason that this sketch is like the reason that. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 9. Jana and Kamal each invest $8,000. At the end of 12 years, they each have $12,800. Jana invests in an account that pays simple interest at a rate of R% per year, and we need to calculate what this R is. In the question, it clearly states that this is a simple interest question. So we need to make use of the simple interest formula. To calculate the simple interest, we need to do PRN divided by 100. So in this case, it will be I is equal to PRN divided by 100. P is the principal amount, that is the amount invested. So that's going to be this 8,000 times R is what we are supposed to find, that is the rate, that is the percentage that we are supposed to calculate, times N is the period of time, that is 12 years, so I need to put 12 here, divided by 100, and I need to substitute the interest. But this 12,800 is what they get after 12 years, which means the total amount is this 12,800. So for me to calculate the interest from the total amount, I need to deduct the principal amount, that is the amount that was invested. So to this, from this 12,800, I am going to deduct 8,000 to calculate the interest. So when I find the difference there, that will be the interest, which is 4,800. I'm going to substitute this 4,800 here. And now I need to make R the subject, because that is what we are supposed to find. To do that, I need to bring this 100 that is dividing to the other side. It gets multiplied. So it will get multiplied with this 4,800. And this 8,012, they are being multiplied. When I take it to the other side, they will get divided. So it's going to be divided by 8,010. This will give us the value of R. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So that is 4,800 times 100. And in the denominator, I have 8,000 times 12. So when we solve this, we get 5. So 5 is the rate, which means the rate is 5%. The second part of the question, Kamal invests in an account that pays compound interest at a rate of R% per year. Calculate the value of R. So here, this is for the same question, but Kamal is investing he is investing in an account that pays compound interest, which means we have to make use of the compound interest formula, which is A is equal to P times 1 plus R over 100 to the power n. So let me write it here. A is equal to P times 1 plus R over 100 to the power n. I'm going to substitute the values. So A is the amount, the final amount. P is the amount invested, which is 8,000. So A is the final amount that is already known to us, which is this 12,800. So it will be 12,800 is equal to 8,000 times 1 plus the rate we are supposed to find, but in this case, it's going to be this uppercase letter R over 100, and the value of n is 12. Now I need to solve this to find what R is. To do that, I need to bring this 8,000 to the other side. It gets multiplied when it's in the right side. When I take it to the left side, it gets divided. So it will be 12,800 divided by 8,000. This is equal to 1 plus R over 100 to the power 12, which means if I'm to find, if I'm to get rid of this power of 12, I need to do the 12th root of this answer that we get. So I'll put it like this. So this will give us what 1 plus R over 100 is equal to. So let's first find that. So I'm going to put it in the calculator. So I need to find the 12th root. So it's going to be the 12th root. And inside the square root, I need to put the fraction, which is 12,800 divided by 8,000. So when I do that, I get 1.0399. So I will write it as 1.0399. This is equal to 1 plus r over 100. And also after that 9, we have a 4 and a 4. So I can just write 1, 4 if required. So I'll write it this way. Now the next thing that we got to do is I need to get rid of this 1. So to bring this 1 to the other side, if I bring it to the other side, it will get deducted. So it will be like 1.03994 minus 1, which is equal to this r over 100. So from this, when I deduct this 1, I get 0.03994. This is equal to r over 100. So I will write it here. This is equal to r over 100. So for me to find what r is, I need to bring this 100 to the other side. So I can isolate r. So it'll be 0.03994 times by 100. This gives us the value of r. So I can even do it in the calculator here. So from this amount, I need to deduct 1. Once when I deduct 1, I need to times this amount by 100. So when I do that, I get 3.994. Or I can write it as 3.9999%. So I can just move the decimal point if required. So it will be r is equal to 3.994, and correct to 2 decimal places, I can write it as 3.99%. The reason why I wrote this 4 as well is because now to give you an idea that we cannot round it up. So we cannot make it into a 4. It's fine to make it into a 4 as well, but to stay in the safer side, make sure to write it to 2 decimal places. So it's going to be r is equal to 3.99%. With that, we are done with this part of the question. Let's move on to part B. The population of a city is growing exponentially at a rate of 1.8% per year. In this question, it's an exponential growth. That means it keeps increasing. That's the meaning. The population now is 260,000. Find the number of complete years from now when the population will first be more than 300,000. So these are key points that you need to understand. So when it comes to population growth, so this is an exponential increase. So this is similar to compound interest. So we can make use of this compound interest formula. So in this case, when we make use of the compound interest formula that we have here, we end up getting A is equal to, so I'm going to put the compound interest formula, which is P times 1 plus R over 100 to the power N. Now, we know that the value of A that we have here is 300,000. So it should be more than 300,000. So for it to be more than 300,000, we need to calculate what N should be. So now in this case, the starting value P is going to be equal to 260,000. So I'm going to put that 1 plus, the rate is given to us as 1.8. So I'm going to write that as 1.8 over 100. The reason why we picked this compound interest formula is compound interest as well as exponential growth here, they both keep increasing. That's the reason why we need to pick the function with the plus, with pick the equation with the plus. The minus is when there is an exponential decrease. But in this case, as it's an increase, we had to pick the one with the plus. And N is the power. We need to find what this N is when this amount that we get should be more than 300,000. And it should be, and according to this question, it clearly states that when the population will first be more than 300,000. So now I'm going to put this in the calculator. So I'm going to consider some random values for N, and we will see what we can do. So it's going to be 1.8 over 100, and I need to close the brackets, and I need to put the power N, the value for N. So let's say I'm going to put the value of n as a 5. When I put the value of n as a 5, I get 284,000, around 284,000. So that did not pass 300,000. Let me make the value of n into a 7. When I make this into a 7, I get 294,000. Still, it did not pass 300,000. I'm going to make the value of n into an 8. Now, this is very closer to 300,000, but still, it did not exceed 300,000. And in the question, it clearly states that we need to find the number of complete years. That's the reason why we substitute the value of n with whole numbers, which means I can now substitute 9 and see what we get. So when I substitute 9 here, that is when it first goes beyond 300,000, which means the value of n should be equal to 9 years. So here, when n was 8, when n was equal to 8, we got around 299,885.57. But when n was 9, the value that we ended up getting here was 305,283. So I'll put it here, 305,283.5125. So I'll write it as 51. This is when it exceeds 300,000. So that's going to be 9 years. So this is what we are supposed to do. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 10. Here we are given a table. The equation of the graph is given to us. The values of x are given, and there are 3 values of y that are missing. We're supposed to calculate that. To calculate it, here the value of x should be substituted. So I'm going to just show how it should be substituted. The first one should be 2 times x is this -3. So I'm going to put -3, put the brackets, put the power 3 here, plus 6 times the value of x is again the same -3, put the square, minus 2.5. I need to put this in the calculator. So it's going to be 2 times the value of -3 cubed, and then add 6 times the value of -3, and then I have a square, and then I need to do minus 2.5. So when I do this, I get minus 5/2. This minus 5/2 as a decimal is minus 2.5. So I know that this value is minus 2.5. I need to find these 2 values as well. The other 2 values where the value of x is now minus 0.5. So I'm going to make this minus 3 into minus 0.5. And the value of this minus 3 also should be changed into minus 0.5. So I get minus 5/4, which is minus 1.25. So this is minus 1.25. And then the last number is when the value of x is a 1 whole number. So I need to make this a 1. And this one also should be changed into a 1. So when I do that, I get the value as 5.5. So this is 5.5. Now I need to mark the coordinate points in the grid given. So I have connected the points, and this is how the graph will be. But make sure that the graph is a smooth curve. So I have some feathering lines here. So make sure you avoid that and draw a smooth curve. Then let's move on to the next part of the question. By drawing a suitable line on the graph, solve the equation 2x cubed plus 6x squared is equal to 4.5. Now first, the equation given in the question is, the equation of the graph is y is equal to, so let me write the equation here, that is y is equal to 2x cubed plus 6x squared minus 2.5 is the equation of the graph that is given. And the equation that is given to us here in the question is 2x cubed plus 6x squared is equal to 4.5. So I'm going to bring this 4.5 to this side. So it will be 2x cubed plus 6x squared. And this 4.5, when it goes to the other side, that becomes minus 4.5. This is equal to this 0 here. Now what I'm going to do is, I need to see how we could make this equation look like the equation of the curve. So to do that, I need to add a 2 to this side. So if I add a 2 to this side of the equation, I need to do the same thing to the other side as well. So when I do that, the equation will be the same. The equation that I get in the right side will be the same as the equation of the graph. So I will have 2x cubed plus 6x squared. This minus 4.5 and this 2 will be minus 2.5. And in this side, I'll have 0 plus 2, which is equal to a 2. Now, the right side of the equation is equal to the equation of the curve, which means here the value of y is equal to this number here, which is this 2. So y is equal to 2, which means in the question we are supposed to draw a suitable line. The suitable line that we should draw is y is equal to 2 line, which means this is where y is 2. So I'm gonna draw a line so that it passes through that 2. So it will be like this. So I'm gonna draw the line from this point. It's going to be like this. This is that y is equal to 2 line. Now, as we can see here, this y is equal to 2 line is intersecting the graph, that is the curve, at 3 points. This is one point, this is the other point, and this is the next point that we have. So we need to find their x values, and that is what we are supposed to write here. So this is what we get here. So each box here is representing 0.1. So this will be minus 1 point, this is every 2 boxes represent 0.1 units. So this is minus 2, this is minus 2.5, 2.6, and this is going to be 2.65. So that's going to be minus 2.65. This point will be minus 1.1. Then we have this one. This is the next point. So this is 0.5, 6, 7, 7.5. So 0.75. These three are the x values that we get. Let's move on to the next question that we have, which is question D. The equation 2x cubed plus 6x squared minus 2.5 is equal to k. This has exactly 2 solutions. That means, now here this k is like y. This k is actually y. That means, when we draw the y is equal to whatever the line it is, it has exactly 2 solutions. So we need to write 2 possible values of that k. That means the straight line that we draw, that is the y is equal to line, the horizontal line, should hit the graph at just 2 points, where you will end up getting 2 solutions for x. So here, when we drew this line, we had 3 values for x. But for it to give you 2 values for x, the 2 lines should be, one line should be a line that goes in the middle like this. So, okay, hold on. It's going to be like this. So this line is y is equal to 5.5. And the other line is going to be this line that we have here. So it's going to be y is equal to minus 2.5. So these two are the equations. So then the question is asking for 2 values. Now here has exactly 2 values. We need to find what the k is. K is the value of y, which means the 2 values are minus 2.5 and 5.5. With that, we are done with this graph question. Let's move on to the next one, which is question 11. We are given 3 functions here. The first question is to find what g of f of 2 is equal to, which means we first need to find what f of 2 is, and then that f of 2's answer is sent inside G, and then we need to find the value. To find what f of 2 is, so f of x is 1 over x. So to this 1 over x function, the value of x is replaced with this 2, that becomes 1 over 2. This is what f of 2 is. This answer that we get here should be sent inside g of x. So the g of x function is equal to 3x minus 5. So it will be 3 times x, which is half, minus 5. So I need to solve this. When I solve this, the value I get is minus 7 over 2, or minus 3.5. This is what I get as the answer. The next one is to find the inverse function of g. Now I'm going to first replace this g of x with y, and I can write it as y is equal to 3x minus 5. To find the inverse function, we need to do 2 steps. The first step is to isolate x. So the first step to isolate x, we need to bring this minus 5 to the other side, so it gets added with the y. And I need to divide, this will be equal to 3x. So for me to find, this is equal to 3x. So for me to find what x is, this y plus 5 that I have here has to be divided by 3. So now I have isolated x. The second step to do is to switch x and y. So when I switch x and y, I will have x plus 5 over 3 is equal to 1, which means this x plus 5 over 3 is the inverse function of g. The next question, to find in its simplest form, what is g of x minus 2, which means x minus 2 is sent inside this g of x function machine. So then the function given to us is 3 times this x that we have here gets replaced with this x minus 2. And then I have this minus 5 after that. So I need to write it this way. I'm going to solve this. So to solve this, I need to expand it. So I get 3x. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. And then I have minus 5. So when I simplify this, I get 3x minus 11. So this is going to be what g of x minus 2 is equal to. Then in the next question, we need to find the value of x when f of g of x is equal to 0.1, which means the meaning of this is this g of x is sent inside the f of x function machine. G of x function is 3x minus 5. It is sent inside f of x means the x in this f of x function machine gets replaced with this 3x minus 5, which means it will be 1 over 3x minus 5, which is equal to this 0.1. I need to solve this to find what x is, because we are expected to find what x is. To solve this, we have a decimal here, or I can write the 0.1 as 1 over 10 as well. There's no problem, but I'm just going to write it as 0.1 itself. I'm going to write this over 1, and then I'm going to cross multiply this. So I will get 1 times 1 is 1. This is equal to 0.1 times 3x minus 5. I'm going to expand it by multiplying the terms inside the brackets with this term outside, number that is outside, which is 0.1. So I'll have 1 is equal to 0.1 times 3x is 0.3x. 0 times minus 5 is minus 0.5. I need to isolate, I need to find x, so I need to take all the other terms to the other side and make x and isolate x. So to do that, I have minus 0.5. When I take it to the other side, it gets added. So this will be equal to 0.3x. So 1 plus 0.5 is equal to 1.5. I need to divide it by this 0.3 to find what x is. So 1.5, when I divide it by 0.3, the value of x is equal to 5. This is how we find what x is. Or here, instead of writing it as 0.1 over 1, this 0.1 is the same as 1 over 10. So I can put that fraction and cross multiply. I will still end up getting the same answer. Then the next part of the question is to find what x is when h of x minus g of 7 is equal to 0. Which means h of x means x is sent into the h function, which is 2 to the power x. That means it will say the same 2 to the power x. minus g to the g7 means 7 is sent inside this g of x function machine, which is 3x minus 5. So it will be 3 times 7 minus 5. This has to be deducted from this 2 to the power x, and that will be equal to this 0. So 3 times 7 is 21. 21 minus 5 is 16. So from this 2 to the power x, I need to deduct 16. This is equal to 0. So I need to bring the minus 16 to the other side. That becomes plus 16, which will be 2 to the power x is equal to 16. This 16, I can write it with a base of 2 in the index form. So it's going to be 2 to the power x is equal to, I can write it as 2 to the power 4, because 2 to the power 4 is equal to 16, which means the bases are equal, therefore the indices will be equal. This is how we know that the value of x is 4. With that, we are done with question 11. And now we're going to move on to the last question, which is question 12. So in question 12, we are given a diagram. The diagram shows a circle which has a radius of 12 centimeters. With the sector removed, a part of this circle is removed. Calculate the perimeter of the remaining shaded shape. This is the shaded shape, and we need to calculate the perimeter of this shaded shape. Now, in this case, this larger shape that is left out is also called as a sector, but that is the major sector. We are supposed to calculate the perimeter of that sector. To calculate the perimeter of any sector, whether it's a major sector or a minor sector, the angle for that sector has to be known. So in this case, this angle is, we need to know how much this angle is. So to do that, the angles around a point will be 360. So from 360 degrees, we need to deduct this 50, which will be 310. So I know that this angle is 310. Now I need to apply this into the perimeter of the sector formula. So the angle is 310 over 360. And I need to times it with 2 times pi times the radius, which is 12. This will just give us the arc length of the sector, that is from here to here. But the perimeter will include this side 12 and this side 12 as well. So with this, I need to add 2 times the radius, which is 12. 2 times 12. Now I need to put this in the calculator and see what I get as the perimeter. So I'm going to put this in the calculator. So it's going to be 310 over 360. Then I need to times it with 2 times pi times 12. And then with this, I need to add 2 times 12, because that is the 2 radii of the circle, of the sector, which is 88.926. So corrected 2 decimal places, I can write it as 88.93 centimeters. This will be the perimeter of the sector given here. Let's move on to the next part of the question. The diagram in part A shows that the top of a cylindrical cake, so this is the top of a cylindrical cake with the slice removed. The volume of the cake that remains, the remaining portion's volume is 3,510 cubic centimeters. Calculate the height of the cake. Now, it would look like this. So first I'm going to draw a small diagram. So this is how the cylindrical cake was at the beginning. Then a slice from this cake is now removed. So this part is no longer there. So I can just just get rid of that line and mark it like this. This portion is not available. Now, this remaining portion's volume that we have here. So this is how the top will be. That is the one that is given here. And this height of the cake is what we are supposed to find. So this remaining volume is only equal to 3,510 cubic centimeter. We need to calculate what's this height. To calculate this, now to calculate the volume of a cylinder, the general formula, now we have a formula which is pi r squared times h. But I'm going to make use of the general formula, which is area of the cross-section times L. L is the length along which the cross-section stays the same. In this diagram, the cross-section is going to be this shape that we have here, which means we need to calculate the area of this larger sector that we have, because the area of the larger sector or the larger sector will be the cross-section for this cake without that slice, which means to calculate the area, I need to do the area of the sector. The area of the sector formula is given here. I have written it here, which is the angle out of 360 times pi r squared, which means we already know that the angle is 310. So I need to write that out of 360 times it with pi times radius squared. So the radius is 12. The radius of the circle was 12. So square that. This will give the area of the sector that we have here, which is this shaded region. This will be the cross-section for this cake without this slice. Now, this cake, when it's this portion, this area, when it's times with this L, gives us the volume. This L is the length along which the cross-section stays the same. So in this case, the length along which the cross-section stays the same will be the height of the cylinder. This will be equal to the volume. So the volume of the remaining portion is what we are trying to find here. That is equal to this 3,510. So we need to relate it with this value that is given to us. Now I need to isolate H to find its value. So to do that, I need to bring all the terms that I have in the right side of the equation to the left side and isolate H. So I have 3,510 here. The 360 is being divided. So when I take it to the other side, it gets multiplied. Then I have this 310, pi and 12 squared. They are all being multiplied. When I take it to this side, it will get divided. So it will be divided by 310 times pi times 12 squared. This will give us the value of H. Now let's put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So let's put the values then. So I'm going to put the fraction bar. I have 3,510 and 360 at the top. 310 pi and then 12 squared. So this will give us the value of H, which is 9.01, which means the height of this cylindrical cake is 9.01 centimeters. So we are supposed to find the height of the cake. They haven't mentioned to how many significant figures or to how many decimal places to round. So it's always best to write it to 2 decimal places. With that, we will be done with all the questions in this paper.